You've heard it before. She takes a breath, looks away, and says two words that seem harmless. I'm fine, but you can feel it. The air shifts. The energy in the room changes, like the tension just got heavier, but you can't quite explain why. Something feels off. Yet you tell yourself not to make it a big deal. You accept it. You move on, because believing she's fine is easier than finding out why she isn't. That's the lie everyone accepts. I'm fine isn't peace. It's distance. It's not calm. It's control. It's a quiet way of saying, I don't feel safe enough to tell you how I really feel. And the truth is, most people never hear what's behind those words. They hear, I'm fine, and think the problem is over, when really it's just been buried deeper. Think about it. How many times has she said it after an argument that didn't really get resolved? After a small comment that hit deeper than you realized? Or when she looked at you, not angry, just disconnected? Like she was there physically but mentally already somewhere else. When a woman says, I'm fine, it's rarely about that moment. It's about everything that came before it. The ignored feelings, the missed signs, the moments where she tried to explain what was wrong but felt unheard or misunderstood. After a while, she stops explaining. She stops trying. That's what I'm fine really means. I've given up trying to make you understand, and here's what makes it even more dangerous. On the surface, it sounds calm. It sounds mature. But underneath, it's a quiet storm of disappointment, exhaustion, and emotional retreat. She's not trying to start a fight anymore, she's protecting herself from another one. The moment you hear those words, it's already a warning. It's not the time to defend yourself or prove her wrong, it's the moment to pay attention, not to what she said, but to what she didn't. Because when she says, I'm fine, she's not asking you to fix her problems. She's asking you to notice that she's hurting. She's testing whether you care enough to see through the silence. The scariest part is that by the time you realize she wasn't fine, she's already learned to stop expecting you to notice. That's when people drift apart. Not from shouting matches or big breakups, but from these small, quiet moments where connection fades without a sound. I'm fine, two words that sound like peace, but usually mean, this is your last chance to see me before I disappear emotionally. And yet, most people never do. They hear it, believe it, and go on with their day. Until one day, she's gone. Not physically, but emotionally gone, long before she ever leaves. That's the real meaning behind I'm fine. It's not a phrase. It's a signal. A soft, quiet alarm most people never hear until it's too late. When someone says, I'm fine, what they're really doing is lighting a small emotional smoke signal. It's not a scream, not a confrontation, it's a quiet way of saying, something's wrong. But I don't feel safe enough to show you the fire. People don't shut down out of nowhere. They withdraw because, somewhere along the line, expressing their feelings started to feel pointless or even dangerous. Maybe every time she tried to open up, she was met with defensiveness, jokes, or silence. Maybe she learned that being honest led to arguments instead of understanding. So she adapts, she hides the truth behind composure. I'm fine becomes her armor. It's a phrase built from experience, a way to keep her dignity when she doesn't feel heard. It's not meant to deceive, it's meant to survive. Most of us think of withdrawal as rejection. We assume that when someone pulls away, it's because they've stopped caring, but it's usually the opposite. They care too much, and they've run out of ways to say it. When emotions pile up with no place to go, people retreat to avoid getting hurt again. It's self-protection disguised as indifference. Think about how it feels when you express frustration and it's brushed off. After a while, you stop trying. You tell yourself, it's not worth it. But that's not peace. That's emotional exhaustion. That's what I'm fine sounds like. It's the emotional equivalent of smoke rising before the fire burns out completely. It's the last visible sign that someone still wants to be seen, even if they don't know how to ask for it anymore. And when you ignore that signal, when you take I'm fine at face value, the smoke clears, and all that's left is distance. The psychology behind it is simple. People seek safety in relationships. Emotional honesty only happens when someone feels understood, not judged. The moment they sense they'll be dismissed, their brain switches to protection mode. They say what keeps the peace instead of what's true. That's why empathy matters more than logic in these moments. Asking, "What's wrong?" isn't enough. It's about how you ask. It's about whether the person believes you actually want to know, whether your presence feels like safety or interrogation. When someone says, "I'm fine," they're testing that safety. They're waiting to see if you'll look deeper or if you'll turn away like everyone else. That's the unspoken part of it, the part most people never catch. If you can recognize that "I'm fine" is not an ending, but a signal, you can change everything. You stop reacting to the words and start responding to the need behind them. You stop seeing withdrawal as coldness and start seeing it as pain trying to protect itself. That's the emotional smoke signal, a quiet cry for understanding that fades the moment no one looks close enough to see it. When she says, "I'm fine," she's not just protecting herself, she's watching you, not in a manipulative way, but in a quiet, hopeful one, because what happens next tells her everything she needs to know. It's the silent test. It's the moment that reveals whether you can sense her shift in energy or if you'll just move on and pretend everything's normal. And the truth is, most people fail this test. Not because they don't care, but because they don't recognize it's happening. When she says, "I'm fine," she's asking a deeper question beneath the surface. Do you see me? Do you actually notice me when I'm not okay? It's not about the words, it's about emotional presence. She's testing whether your attention is rooted in her comfort or your convenience, whether you'll choose to lean in even when she's pushing away. Because if you think about it, "I'm fine" is one of the softest forms of a cry for reassurance. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, it's quiet enough to go unnoticed by the untrained heart. But if you're emotionally aware, if you pay attention to the subtleties, you realize it's a moment of truth. She's saying, "I want to trust you, but I need to know if it's safe." And that's the part so many people misunderstand. When someone withdraws, we often take it personally. We assume they're playing games, trying to manipulate, or just being difficult. But most of the time, it's the complete opposite. They're silently hoping you'll notice, that you'll care enough to reach beyond the surface. It's not about fixing their problem, it's about proving that their emotions matter to you, that they don't have to shout to be heard. You see, people test love in quiet ways, not through words, but through silence, through distance, through little pauses that ask, "Will you follow me here, or will you give up the second it gets uncomfortable?" When someone says, "I'm fine," but their eyes tell a different story, that's the test. When they act calm, but their tone is colder than usual, that's the test. When they stop arguing altogether, when they stop reacting, that's the moment they're silently asking if you'll notice the difference. Failing this test doesn't always mean losing them right away. But it plants a seed of doubt, the thought that maybe you're not emotionally available, and once that thought grows, connection starts to erode piece by piece. Passing it, though, doesn't require grand gestures. It's about presence. It's staying when silence feels uncomfortable. It's asking softly, "Are you sure you're okay?" and meaning it. It's giving her space to speak without trying to fix or analyze. That's the essence of emotional safety. And that's what the silent test is truly measuring. Because when she says, "I'm fine," she's not looking for someone to read her mind. She's looking for someone to care enough to listen beyond the words. "I'm fine" almost never starts in the moment it's spoken. It's the result of something that's been building quietly over time, a slow rewind of every small moment that went unnoticed. When she says it, she's not reacting to what just happened. She's reacting to everything that's happened. Every time she felt dismissed, every time she felt misunderstood, every time she swallowed her feelings to keep the peace. Those moments pile up, one on top of another, until silence becomes her only safe language. Most people don't realize how far back the rewind goes. You think the tension started with the last disagreement, or maybe with a careless comment. But in her mind, she's replaying a whole series of small, invisible disappointments, ones you might not even remember. It's the time you scrolled through your phone while she was talking. The time she said, "It's okay," but her eyes looked tired. The time she shared something vulnerable and you brushed it off with logic instead of empathy. None of those things felt like big deals at the time, but they left tiny cracks that never got repaired. When she says, "I'm fine," It's her way of saying, I've tried to bring this up before and nothing changed. It's not an accusation. It's exhaustion. It's the emotional version of watching the same movie over and over and realizing the ending never changes. This is what I call the emotional rewind, when someone mentally scrolls back through the timeline of the relationship, replaying the moments they felt unseen, unappreciated, or alone. And the more those memories replay, the colder they start to feel in the present. She might smile less. She might talk less. Not because she stopped loving you, but because she's running out of hope that love will feel like it used to. She's rewinding to remember what it felt like when connection was effortless, before the distance crept in. The hardest part is that most people never see this happening. From the outside, everything looks calm. There's no yelling, no dramatic argument, no clear sign that something's wrong. But inside, she's emotionally packing her bags, preparing for the possibility that this version of the relationship is over, even if she hasn't said it out loud yet. And when you hear "I'm fine" during that stage, it's not anger you're hearing. It's grief. It's the sound of someone quietly letting go of the parts of the relationship that used to make them feel safe. You can't undo that rewind with quick apologies or empty reassurance. You can only stop it by creating new moments that feel safe enough to overwrite the old ones, by showing that this time things can actually be different. Because in the end, "I'm fine" isn't about the present at all. It's about the past still echoing through every word left unsaid. And until that past is acknowledged, the rewind keeps playing, silently pulling her further away each time you choose not to notice. There's a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when "I'm fine" turns into "I don't care anymore." It doesn't happen during a fight. It happens in the silence after the fight. When she's sitting in the same room as you but feels miles away. When every word feels heavy, pointless, rehearsed. That's the breaking point. It's not the explosion everyone expects. It's not the shouting, not the tears, not the door slamming. It's the calm that follows. The kind of calm that feels colder than anger. Because anger still means there's something left to fight for. Indifference means it's already gone. When a woman says, "I'm fine" for long enough, she starts to believe it. Not because she's healed, but because she's given up trying to be understood. She's learned that honesty only leads to arguments, so silence becomes survival. You'll notice it in small ways first. She stops correcting you when you're wrong. She stops asking where you've been. She doesn't bring up the things that bother her anymore. At first, you might think things are getting better. Fewer arguments, more peace. But it's not peace. It's resignation. The storm hasn't passed. It's gone underground. This is the most dangerous stage of all. When she starts to detach emotionally. Her love doesn't vanish. It fades quietly, like colors in the sun. She'll still smile, still cook dinner, still laugh at your jokes, but her eyes won't match her words anymore. Her body might be there, but her heart is somewhere else, watching from a distance. The breaking point isn't one single moment. It's a collection of unspoken ones. The day she stopped waiting for you to ask what's wrong. The night she cried next to you quietly because she knew you wouldn't notice. The morning she looked in the mirror and realized she felt lonelier inside the relationship than she ever did alone. By the time you notice the shift, it's usually too late, because the breaking point doesn't announce itself. It just changes everything. The irony is that the very thing she wanted, to be heard, seen, understood, becomes impossible once she reaches this stage. You can't reach her with words anymore. You can only reach her with change. Real, consistent, uncomfortable change. But most people don't change until they lose something. They wait until the silence becomes permanent, until the "I'm fine" turns into a goodbye. And when that moment comes, it hits like a confession you never wanted to hear. Because suddenly you realize she wasn't fine, and deep down you always knew it. The breaking point isn't the end of love. It's the moment love decides it's tired of begging to be recognized. And once that moment arrives, you can't talk your way out of it. You can only wish you'd listened the first time she said, "I'm fine." Silence has a way of speaking louder than any argument ever could. When she stops talking, it's not peace, it's distance. It's the sound of someone who's already said everything that needed to be said, just not everything that needed to be heard. At first, the silence feels strange. You might ask, what's wrong? She'll smile, say, "Nothing." You'll believe her because it's easier to believe silence means calm than to admit it means withdrawal. But silence is never neutral, it's communication wearing armor. You see, silence is her last defense. When words no longer make a difference, when explanations turn into arguments, when emotions are used against her, she stops speaking. Not because she has nothing to say, but because saying it no longer feels safe. That's the moment most people miss. They think silence means forgiveness. It doesn't. It means she's protecting herself from the disappointment of being unheard again. Watch closely. Silence has its own language. It's in the way she gives short answers instead of questions. It's in how she stays busy to avoid conversations. It's in that small, polite smile that hides more distance than words ever could. You'll start to notice a shift in energy. The house feels quieter, but heavier. She's there, but not there. The warmth that used to fill the room has been replaced by something colder. Not anger, not sadness, but emptiness. That's when you realize silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's the sound of love fading away. When someone withdraws emotionally, it's rarely because they stopped caring. It's because they cared for too long without being met halfway. The silence is the echo of every time they said, "I'm fine," and you believed them. It's every unspoken hurt stacked into a wall you can no longer climb. The cruel part? By the time you notice how loud her silence is, she's learned to live inside it. It becomes her comfort, her shield. The place where she no longer has to justify her feelings. You'll try to fix it, ask what's wrong, offer to talk. But the words feel mechanical now. She's heard them before, maybe too many times. And that's when it hits you. It's not that she doesn't want to talk. It's that she no longer believes you'll listen. Silence is her way of saying everything without saying a word. It's her way of telling you that the conversation she needed happened months ago, and you missed it. By the time silence takes over, love has already been replaced by acceptance, not the healthy kind, but the kind that stops fighting. The quiet that once felt peaceful now feels permanent. And when that happens, there's no big goodbye, no final argument, just distance that grows wider with every unspoken word. And in that silence, you finally hear it, the truth that was hiding behind every "I'm fine." If you've made it this far, you've probably realized one thing. "I'm fine" is never fine. It's a signal, a smoke signal, a test. And if you miss it, you risk losing the connection before you even understand what happened. The good news is, it's never too late to start hearing what she's not saying. But it requires more than just asking, "Are you okay?" and expecting a real answer. It requires attention, presence, and the courage to listen without trying to fix, justify, or defend. Step 1. Notice the details. Watch her tone, her posture, her eyes. Notice when she's quieter than usual, when her laugh is shorter, when her smiles don't quite reach her eyes. These are the cracks in the facade, the little signals that say, "Something's wrong and I need you to see it." Step 2. Validate before you question. People don't open up to explanations, they open up to acknowledgement. Instead of asking why she's upset, say something that shows you see her, like, "I notice you've been quiet today. I can tell something's on your mind and I want to understand." Notice the difference. You're not demanding answers, you're creating safety. Step 3. Resist the urge to fix immediately. She doesn't need a solution yet. She needs to be understood. She needs to know that her feelings matter. Too often, when someone says, "I'm fine," the response is, "Here's how we can solve this." That shuts her down faster than silence ever could. Listening without jumping to fix is the first step toward real connection. Step 4. Create space for consistent small gestures. Not grand apologies or declarations, but small repeated actions that prove you see her. Bringing her coffee without asking about her day with genuine curiosity. Remembering the little things she mentions in passing. These build trust faster than words ever will. Step 5. Pay attention to patterns, not moments. Emotional withdrawal doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow build-up. The sooner you notice the pattern, the repeated silences, the short answers, the fading energy, the sooner you can respond before distance becomes permanent. Hearing what she's not saying is less about interpreting words and more about interpreting absence. What isn't being said often carries far more weight than what is. And when you start paying attention, you realize that "I'm fine" isn't a wall. It's a door waiting to be opened the right way. If you get this right, you don't just prevent distance. You build trust, safety, and intimacy that make "I'm fine" unnecessary. You move from reacting to understanding, from defending to connecting. Because the truth is, when someone says "I'm fine," they're not giving up on you. They're quietly asking for you to show up in a way you might have missed before. And if you do, the connection that was fading can come back stronger than ever.